there friends, I am Q and welcome to my bipolar journals where I share about my mental health journey as a person with bipolar 1 disorder. So for today's episode, I would like to talk about something that happened very recently, which is me coming off from a high phase. And just as a fair warning as well, that parts of this video is kind of like very embarrassing to me. But as much as I want this bipolar playlist that I'm building to be informative, I also want to share a couple of oopsies and embarrassing moments that I had along the way. So let's begin. A brief definition of a high or an elevated phase in bipolar disorder refers to a period of mood characterized by an unusually elevated, euphoric, or irritable state. So just a brief timeline as to how I got into my high phase is that for the last week of December 2024, my company had a year-end shutdown where we do not work so that we can spend more time with our families. And what that meant for me is that my sleeping schedule is a bit more different versus if I had the routine of working, because I was more lenient in terms of like following the previous sleep schedules that I had. And that in turn led me to missing some medication timings. That is why I got to a high phase. Please don't be stupid like me. Do not try this at home. I am sharing this so that you can learn from my mistakes and not have it happen to you. So let's move on to a lighter note first. So just for funsies, let's revisit what I did when I was in my elevated phase. And this occurred about the same time, which is last week of December. So number one is that I fixated on this beautiful house I saw on Facebook Marketplace. It was listed at 12 million pesos and I immediately fell in love with it. It is already in the location that I want. It's so big and it had a lot of room for my dogs to go. Well, thankfully I didn't have 12 million in my bank to impulsively buy this house. So I just told my mom, what if we just try to enter the lottery? And then out of curiosity, I looked at how much the lottery was going on for that day. So coincidentally, the lottery on that day was also 12 million. So I was thinking, oh my God, this is a sign from God. This is definitely for us. We need to win the lottery today. And then I also fixated on some random numbers that I was seeing. So for example, someone texted me on that same moment and I was like, oh my God, these are the winning numbers. We need to enter these winning numbers. We're gonna win that 12 million. And sad to say that we didn't win, but I think this is really one of the height of my elevated phase back then. So next, let's revisit some of the ambitious goals I've set for myself during my elevated phase. So one of my goals is to be able to sing Don't Rain on My Parade by year end. And just to give you an idea, I haven't sung something like this since high school. And even during my high school days, I was able to vocalize daily because of choir practice. I also had some guidance in terms of belting. I don't know how to do that anymore, but the next goal I have is to write 50 poems by year end. So I haven't been writing for a few years now and 50 poems sounds wild. But is it doable? Maybe. But are they publishable? Absolutely not. And of course, this is also coupled with the fact that I thought it was a really good idea to start my own YouTube channel. Welcome to my channel. And I mean, a YouTube channel is okay, I guess an okay goal, but during my elevated phase, I thought it was also a good idea to start 2 YouTube channels concurrently. And here we are. And as for my other YouTube channel, please check out Cute Reads as my booktube. So then I move on to the more serious portion of this video, which is I am very lucky and glad that I have caught it early, and this is because right after my diagnosis I was also exposed to some therapy sessions which kind of guided me as to how to navigate this disorder. One of my favorite and most useful pieces of advice that I had was to track my sleep. And that is basically how I figured out I was going into a high phase. So for sleep tracking, I have this Fitbit, unsponsored. This is just inspired to, and I have been using it for the past 3 years now, and it's super duper useful because once you start tracking your sleep, you actually can understand that there is a trend to your moods. I understand that when I am depressed or in a low phase, I sleep more than average, which is about 10 to 12 hours. And then during my elevated phase, I tend to sleep lesser than 8 hours. So let's look at my Fitbit for the previous month of December. So I was sleeping so well during the 3rd week of December because of the work year-end shutdown. Sometimes I go up to 9 to 12 hours. But as I try to go back to my usual working time, the next weeks go down, and this is where it causes alarm because I went some 2 full weeks that was only 5 hours and I wasn't even napping as well. So that's the flag that led me to call my doctor, and we came up with a plan to adjust my medications for the time being so that I can also adjust it while I'm going back to the regular sleep schedule. So besides sleep schedules, I also track a lot of stuff. I track my mood. I also track my menstrual cycles because the moods are also connected to our menstrual cycles. I also track when I exercised. I think there's a lot of other stuff that I do track as a nerd. It's kind of lengthy, so I'll just put that in another video. So I move on to my overall thoughts on being elevated and the high phase, and I try to not want to romanticize the high, but compared to depression, I also like being a little high. I mean, if I can just target the sweet spot between normal and the high wherein it's already detrimental to me, if I could just target the little sweet spot of high there wherein I'm just high enough to be a little more than normal but less than hypomanic, if that makes sense, then I wish I could stay there. For me, I like myself when I am elevated because I am also my own personal cheerleader. I'm kind of my little motivational speaker inside my head that says, start a new hobby, let's do it. What a great idea, we'll be great there. Spend $200 in one day, oh my god, like let's treat ourselves, we freaking deserve this. But at the same time, I also acknowledge the other point of the spectrum wherein if the high becomes an unhealthy kind of high wherein it starts to level at hypomania high, it becomes very detrimental to me. I used to have these spending sprees wherein I made some very bad financial decisions. I also had these flight of ideas where I think to myself that I was really, really smart and I was very articulate and I was like wowing everyone, but in reality I was just rambling and not being able to form a cohesive thought. There are ideas that are really good during the elevated phase, but I'm not really going to follow through with that. So yeah. Anyway, if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Feel free to share your own elevated state stories in the comments, and maybe we can share some ideas as to how to navigate these high phases. Please remember again that I'm trying to create a safe space. Before you comment anything bad, please try to be kind to others and remember that everyone is dealing with something. And last but not least, I'd like to thank my 2 subscribers in my channel. I can't thank you one by one because it's kind of private, so I don't know who you are, but you're more likely one of my friends, so thank you so much for supporting. I have only 998 subscribers to go before I justify purchasing that vlogging camera. So yeah, thank you and see you on the next video.